first meet Ron, and how did you collaborate?
Sure. I first met Ron in 1988. He'd taken time out of the University of Sydney to lead the Workplace Industrial Relations Survey team in the Department of Industrial Relations in Canberra. We'd had a budget appropriation of around $3 million. Cabinet had signed off on it. Ron didn't get to select the staff he was going to work with, so as an academic who normally has a huge amount of autonomy, he put himself in the middle of a government agency and had 3 other people allocated to him. He had never seen us before, he didn't know what he was getting, and then did a fantastic job. So his a big achievement, I think, was to take a huge risk and then work with the materials that he had.
Then Ron came back to the University of Sydney to head the Australian Research Council's Key Centre on Industrial Relations Research and Teaching, and you were his deputy and successor. What comments would you make about Ron's achievements?
His great achievement was actually getting a centre of significant scale together in the social sciences. It's quite rare to get units bigger than 3 or 4. At its height, our centre had 30, 35 people in it. What Ron brought to it was a deep curiosity based on scepticism of orthodoxy, so he used to love myth-busting. He had a deep sense of care for the people around him, but most of all, he was collaborative. He wasn't just about you going out and building up your own CV, or he wasn't about using young researchers to build up his CV. He wanted to bring people together to generate really interesting ideas, and the people he really liked to work with were what we call practical intellectuals. These are people who use abstraction in everyday life to solve quite hard problems that come out of just everyday existence. And people like Vic Tekricks, who'd been a HR manager in Woolies, Roger Boland, who was in the Metal Trades Industry Association. He also had contacts in unions and the Commission. That was what Ron's great strength was: care, collaboration, and actually deep curiosity, bringing it all together.
In the obituary, you referred to Ron as a practical, intellectual entrepreneur. Now, they're 3 words that don't usually get used at the same time.
Sure.
Why did you call him that?
At his funeral, there was a beautiful eulogy given by one of his friends who came out of the Jewish culture, and he mentioned that there's a Yiddish tale about the notion of the wise businessman. And as soon as I heard this expression in the eulogy, I thought, that's Ron. You know, it's not someone you see in many walks of life, but he brought together both a deep wisdom, but also a deep pragmatism that you normally associate with entrepreneurs. And so that's why I said practical intellectual entrepreneur, interested in ideas, but not just in the abstract. How do you mobilise resources? How do you mobilise people to bring it all together? And that was Ron to a T.
Right.
I think his contribution was in the Sydney Uni department.
Look, I first met Ron in '81 when I came to work at Macquarie University, and I got to know him a little bit over the next 6 years, and then in '87 I was appointed as professor and head of department, and by this stage I had fully realised that Ron was the informal leader of the group at Sydney. It was a small group, half a dozen, but they'd had people come and go as professors and heads of departments. And so I turned to Ron immediately, seeking his advice, asking him, what should we do? And his response to me was, we need to set up a research centre that'll do real research, practical research, and we'll focus on the workplace because we know so little about the workplace and industrial relations at the workplace in Australia. And that's what we did.
Very good. So, as we know, Ron wasn't just an academic. Ron had a very rich life after he left the university. Can you just give us some insights into what happened then?
Yeah, well, when he stood down and you succeeded him as director of the centre, he was asked by the faculty to assist younger scholars who were applying for research grants and helping them not just get money, but helping them set up their research. So I'm sure there's a lot of young, or not so young, academics around here who owe their beginning of their career, their research career to Ron. Afterwards, he was also involved in some community organisations such as the Wayside Chapel in Sydney, where they lacked a research capacity. He helped set it up. He helped appoint and mentor the first research director. He also said to me, just before he died, he knew I was interested in doing research on retirement, and he said, let me join you. And it was a lesson to me, because he said, well, we'll interview people, but let's not use the usual interview schedule. Let's just have conversations. And I watched how people just spoke to him in the most intimate terms about their careers and their retirement. He also said, let's get hold of the data. The University of Melbourne. So let's look at the numbers. So he was somebody who was both qualitative and quantitative, a well-rounded researcher who we could all learn so much from.
And we miss him deeply,
We do,
but we do also appreciate that he's given us qualities and ways of seeing that we're sharing with others, and his spirit still lives.
Indeed it does.
Good. Thanks,
Thank you.
Russell.